In the last episode of this ongoing solo RPG actual play series, we created the first quest that our adventurer could possibly go on. In this session, we're going to create quests 2 and 3. And believe me, things are about to get weird. Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and if you love solo RPGs, unpredictable storytelling, and a whole lot of chaos and randomness to inspire your own game sessions, you are definitely in the right place. This is the Quiet Table, and I am so glad you're here. By the end of this session, our adventurer will have 3 quests lined up, and she will have her choice of where she wants to go as she goes off and explores the world. But in order to do that, let me take you to my Quiet Table, and let's roll some dice. Just as a quick recap, I am using D100 Dungeon, the original book, as well as the World Builder expansion, and I'm also using the Mythic GM Emulator. Because D100 Dungeon encourages us to start with our adventure knowing 3 different quests, that is exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to move on to quest number 2 here, which means creating the hex in the exact same way that we created the hex up here. Again, we don't know anything about this area. We don't know what type of terrain it is. We don't know if there's a settlement here, if there are roads, if there are rivers. So we have to create all of that. I'm going to roll on the terrain table and see, first of all, what kind of place this is. And I got a 1. It is a desert. Now that we know that it's a desert, let's figure out whether there is a settlement here. There's only a 15% chance that there's going to be a settlement, so let's find out. 74, there's no settlement here. However, they may be a road. Again, we have a 15% chance of a road and no additional bonuses because there's no settlement. 10, so there is a road going through this desert, which is interesting. We are going to roll to see where the road starts and where it stretches out to. So it starts in the northeast. It's coming from here. It's going to go all the way down to the southwest. And now let's see if it splits. On a 5 or a 6, it splits. On a 5, it splits once. On a 6, it splits twice. It splits twice. So it's coming from the northeast. It's going to the southwest. It's also splitting. Nope. It's also splitting to the north. I'm starting to get worried about this dice. To the north and to the south. So it's coming from the northeast, splitting north and south, and heading down to the southwest. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now we get to find out if there is a river going through here. This is a desert, so the chances of a river going through are pretty slim, but let's find out. There's a 15% chance of a river going through. However, because there is a road going through here, there's an additional 10%. So we have a 25% chance that there is a river going through this desert area. 59, there's no river going through this desert area. So this is it. This is what we've got. The last thing I'm going to do is I am just going to grab a colored pencil and just color this in. You know what we forgot to do? We forgot to name the place. And I'm sure some of you have been screaming at your screens, and I finally heard you. So we're going to go back and we're going to name this desert. So to do that, we're going to roll on the names table. I got a 9. The wild terrain, so the wild desert. This area is now complete, so we can move on to the quest. So to start, we are going to roll on the quests table. So we're going to roll a D100 and see what we get. 30. I'm just going to go back here to my quests sheet. Number 30, favorite weapon. Loot 1 2-handed weapon on table W. Hand in. A person, we will roll to see who this is, recently lost a large weapon while delving their favorite dungeon and have offered a reward to whomever can return it. So let's see who this person is. We are once again going to roll on the names table. 89, an alchemist. Next up, we are just going to add the Q with the little C here. That's the quest reward number. That's a 2. There is no additional reward from the type of person that we've got, so the alchemist doesn't get any bonuses, so that's just a 0. And then the hex also doesn't have any bonuses. So our reward value is only a 2. which means this is going to be a fairly easy quest. It also means that the reward that we're going to get is not going to be as high as the one for the Countess's quest up here. But even so, we need to find out exactly what the reward is going to be. So with the quest RV being a 2, I'm going to roll a 1d6. I got a 5. So the reward is 250 gold pieces. If I fail, I lose half of my gold pieces. And the encounter modifier, which again comes into play when we actually go into a dungeon, is -20. So now that we know what the quest is going to be, I want to learn more about how Alendra has found out about this quest. Who is this alchemist? How did she come across them? How did she find out about the quest? Was it a rumor? Did she actually run into the alchemist? Did she have a conversation with him? These are the questions that I, as a solo role player, need to know before Alendra, my character, is going to dive into a fairly dangerous dungeon and find this guy's weapon. To do this, I am going to use Mythic. So I'm just going to pull out my fate chart here because this is how I do most things when I play Mythic. I roll on the fate chart, I roll on the tables that I've got to get some meaning to put everything together, and then I make up the scene. Now, typically, when you're playing Mythic, you start out by having an expected scene. So something that you know is going to happen. Then you test it to see if it is in fact going to be an expected scene, or if something strange happens, if it's interrupted, if it's altered. All of those are details that we can't go into in depth. However, this is a background scene that I am creating. It is not something that my character is experiencing in this very moment. It is something that she has experienced in her past. So I'm almost using it as a way to build out her backstory. In fact, that's exactly how I'm using it. There's no almost about it. I am using it as a way to build out her backstory. So because of that, I don't really have an expected scene here for what could have happened. Anything could have happened, right? She could have heard about this quest from a friend. She could have heard about the quest from the alchemist himself. I don't know. So I'm going to start asking some questions on the fate chart and see what we come up with. In case you're wondering about the Chaos 4, this is from the last scene that I played, which was also to create her backstory and to come up with what the first quest is going to be about. And because I played that previously, and after that, when I did my bookkeeping, the chaos score went down to a 4, I'm going to be using that new chaos score for this scene, even though it's not really happening in order necessarily. But I am playing it in this order, so that's good enough for me. So the first question is this. Did Alendra find out about the quest from the alchemist himself? And I'm going to put the odds at 50-50 because I genuinely have no idea. And we're going to use the chaos factor of 4. So let's see here. Did she find out about it from the alchemist himself? No, she did not find out about this quest from the alchemist himself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll on the meaning tables, the description tables here. And I'm going to use a D4 to figure out if the number I'm rolling with the D100 is from the first table or the second table. If I roll a 1 or a 2, it's from the first table. If I roll a 3 or a 4, it's from the second table. And I'm just going to roll to get 2 descriptors here and see where we go from there. So I rolled a 3, so it's from the descriptor 2 table, and it's a 13. So I got colorless. And a 1 here, so from this table, a 56, colorless, and joyfully. Now, I'm going to roll on the names table to find out the name of this alchemist, and then I'm going to put everything all together and see what we come up with. So for the alchemist's name, I got 38, that's IA, and 33, floral. Floral, in this case, needs to be interpreted as something related to florals, flowers, etc. Some ideas of how I want to put this all together. I haven't quite made sense of them all in my head, but I do know that I want to name an inn or a tavern because that is where this alchemist is going to be when she completes the quest. Or at least that's where she can ask for him. So what I have here is, well, I have 4 different lists of inn and tavern names, and this came from a book that is all about taverns and random tables for taverns. I will link it in the description down below. It is a great resource. I'm going to do something that I frequently do, and I'm going to pick two names off of these tables. Even though these give me complete names, I still kind of like to make them my own. Because I have 4 different pages with lists of 100 names for inns and taverns each, I'm going to roll my D4 along with the D100, and I'm going to do this twice, and I'm going to take the names that I get, and I'm going to combine them into a brand new inn or tavern name that will be uniquely my own. So the first one is 88 on table 1, The Old Ship. And the second one is on table 3, number 9, Lilies. So now we can put everything together. Here's what I'm thinking. So let's say that while she was walking around in her city, so this was before she was living with a countess, this was while she was still in Yestus, she was walking around maybe the main area, maybe where the marketplace is, and she tended to stop by the town's job board. Even though she didn't need a job, she is of noble birth. She has always dreamed of being an adventurer, so she'd always like to look at the job notices and imagine herself going on one of these wild adventures. And while she walked past this particular job board, for months she had seen the same parchment stuck up there. Nobody had grabbed it. And as the days and weeks wore on, the parchment became old and sun bleached and colorless because, again, nobody was grabbing it. By the time that she pulled it off the board, and she did this because she started to think that perhaps the noble life was not for her, and maybe there was something else out there. Maybe there is adventure waiting for someone, even someone like her. Given that nobody had taken this notice for months, she didn't think that she was taking a job away from a potential adventurer. Now, by the time she actually got to it, most of the ink had faded, making a lot of the details difficult to read. But there's something else about this job notice that makes her want it even more. And that is the words that were scribbled at the bottom after the job posting has been up for a while. A task suited for those who step joyfully into danger. Now, Alendra has never been on a quest before, but the idea of stepping joyfully into danger sounds really good to her. Remember how we rolled the IA and the flower? I decided to name him Yazalian. Azalea, Yazalian. Seek me at the Salted Lily. And that is where the inn and tavern names came in. Remember, we rolled the Old Ship and Lilies. The ship became sailors, became salty, became salted. The Salted Lily. So now Alendra has this piece of paper, this parchment with a quest on it. And she brought it with her when she went to move in with the Countess. She didn't know if she was ever going to go after this quest, but then again, neither had anybody else, so it might as well be her. So now she has 2 quests that she is aware of. Now, this didn't turn out to be a full mythic scene. We didn't actually need to play through it. We could just imagine Alendra going and getting this job notice from a job board and carrying it around with her. Let's move on to quest number 3 and see if we can wrap this up so that Alendra has her 3 quests and she is ready to go out into the wide world of adventuring. We are once again going to start by rolling a D100 to find out what type of terrain this is. 72, we have hills this time. Now I'm not going to forget to name it, so let's go ahead and roll on the names table. Terrain of treasure, that this has a +1 to the reward. So now let's find out if there's a settlement here. We've got hills, so we have a 30% chance of there being a settlement in these hills. 59, there's no settlement here. Let's move on to the road. We have a 25% chance that there's a road. 92, there's no road. Let's see if there's a river going through these hills. 98, there is no river. So the hills of treasure they're unexplored, it seems like, or at the very least, they are unsettled. Maybe that's because there are a lot of dungeons here. Maybe there are a lot of monsters and creatures, and people just don't want to live near that kind of danger. So this was a very easy hex to make. Let's go ahead and color it in. And now let's go ahead and create the quest. We're going to roll another D100. 2. Door breaker. Perform 1d3 jammed door tests on different doors. A person has invented a door breaker they claim will open any door. The adventurer is hired by a rival door enthusiast to put it to the test. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. This is fabulous. So first of all, let's figure out how many jam door tests we need to perform. I don't have a D3, but I do have a D6. So on a 1 or a 2, it's a 1. On a 3 or a 4, it's a 2. On a 5 or a 6, it's a 3. So we have to perform 2 jam door tests. Let's see what kind of crazy person has invented a door breaker that will open any door. 63, Fletcher. So we've got our quest. Now this was quest number 2, and it has a value of 0. The person also has a value of 0, and the hex we're in has a value of 1. Yes. So yay for that, at least. Our total reward value is 1. So with a reward value of 1, it's right here. I'm going to roll a d6. That was a 4. 100 gold pieces. If I fail, I lose half of my gold pieces, and the encounter modifier is minus 30. So let's figure out how Alendra finds out about this particular quest. I have absolutely nothing to go on here. I have no idea how Alendra would have found out about the door breaker or the rival door enthusiast. It sounds really kooky, which I love. I love chaos and I love craziness and randomness, but I don't even know where to begin here. So I am once again going to roll on the description table. So once again, I'm going to get my D4 here and my D100. Okay, so I rolled a 95. Threateningly, and a 46, threateningly and horrible. Let's come up with some names. I do have some ideas of how this is going to go down, and it is so absurd and so lovely. And this is the kind of quest that makes the world come alive for me. This is the kind of quest that makes solo role playing so rewarding. So I need to come up with 2 different names. One for the Fletcher who invented this door breaker, and then one for his rival door enthusiast. I got the letters K-E and Ra, R-A-H. And now let's do the same for his rival, Lee, L-E-E, and On, O-N. So the Fletcher's name is Karam, and the rival door enthusiast's name is Leonis. So here's what I'm thinking for quest number 3. As Alendra is pulling off the job notice for quest number 2, so she's pulling it off the board and she's starting to think to herself, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can be an adventurer. Maybe I can escape my fate. From behind her comes this frazzled, completely traumatized looking man. He is dusty, he is bloody, he is exhausted. He looks like he hasn't slept in days, and he sees her pulling off the job notice, and he mistakes her for another adventurer, and he shoves a piece of parchment in her hands. And before she can react to any of this, he grabs her shoulders. He presses the parchment in her hand. So he grabs her shoulder with one hand. He presses the parchment into her hand with the other. And he pleads, please, please, you have to take this job. I was supposed to do it. I said I would do it, but no, the doors. Oh, gods, the doors. And then without another word, he runs off at full speed, disappearing into the alley behind her. And Alendra is left stunned, now holding 2 pieces of paper. She's got the parchment that she pulled off, which talks about quest to find the weapon. And now she has this rolled up piece of paper from this madman, as far as she's concerned. So she unravels it. What she finds inside is a contract of verification. And it says, issued by Leonis Daltos, architectural purist and guild-affiliated doorwright. Compensation, 100 gold pieces. Objective, to disprove the reckless claims of one Karam of Yestus, so-called Fletcher and innovator of entry. Terms of verification. The aforementioned Fletcher claims that his device, the Master Key Maul, is capable of breaching any door, regardless of craftsmanship, enchantment, or obstruction. The claimant shall test this device upon 2 doors inside the dungeon in the Hills of Treasure. The door selected must be clearly jammed, sealed, or locked beyond conventional means. If the device fails to breach both doors, this shall serve as formal proof that Karam's claims are fraudulent. If the device succeeds, the results must be reported back to the undersigned for analysis and review. Conditions of payment. The claimant shall only receive the agreed-upon sum if both tests are properly performed and verified. Compensation is for verification services only and does not cover injuries, misfortunes, losses, hauntings, or entrapment. Should the claimant perish, no refunds shall be issued. Signed, Leonis Faltos, Guild-affiliated doorright, defender of proper entryways. On the back of the parchment is a test procedure that says, the verification process is to be conducted with absolute precision according to the following steps. Number 1, proper pre-test inspection. The claimant must examine each door thoroughly before attempting the test. Document its material, locking mechanism, structural integrity, and any noticeable reinforcements. Should the door bear an inscription, glyph, or sigil, its nature must be recorded. Number 2, testing the master key maul. The device shall be applied to the center seam of the door using reasonable force. The claimant shall observe whether the device achieves full breach, partial breach, or no effect at all. Number 3, post-test inspection. The structural remnants of the door must be analyzed and documented. Should the device merely weaken rather than fully breach the door, the extent of damage must be described in detail. In case of unexpected phenomena, for example, spontaneous collapse, magical backlash, or other unpredictable failures, the nature of the failure shall be noted. Number 4, proof of completion. One of the following must be presented as evidence upon return. A sufficiently detailed written report, including sketches, a notarized statement from a third-party observer confirming the results, or a physical remnant of a successfully breached door, if transportable. Failure to adhere to these procedures will result in non-payment, public rebuke, and permanent exclusion from future verification opportunities. As Alendra lowers the contract, her eyes still scanning the ridiculous level of detail in the test procedures, she furrows her brow. What? I don't even have the stupid thing. And then just as she looks up, ready to throw out the contract, because it's completely useless to her, there's another sudden scramble of footsteps. And from the alley that he had vanished into, the disheveled adventurer comes barreling back out. His eyes are wild, his hands are shaking, and he skids to a stop in front of her, and he shoves something into her grasp with a frantic urgency. Take it! Just take the damn thing! And then before she can say another word, he's gone again, running as if he expects the very gates of the underworld to open up beneath him. And she looks down at the object in her hand. So now she has the piece of parchment she pulled off the board, the contract, and this thing, which is roughly the size of a heavy warhammer, but its design suggests it was never meant for combat. She doesn't really know how to use this thing, but she figures she will, I guess, figure it out if she ever ends up going to the Hills of Treasure to test out this absurd device on doors in this dungeon. And with that, we have Alendra's 3 quests. We know what she knows. She knows that the Countess wants her to figure out what monsters have in their pockets. We know that there is an alchemist who wants his 2-handed weapon back, and we know that there is an aficionado of doors who absolutely wants to discount this Fletcher's claims that he has created a door breaker that will break through any door. So in the next video, we are going to start playing this game in earnest. But wait, there's more. Before we can actually send Alendra out into the world, we need to make a couple of last-minute additions that are based on the World Builder expansion that we're playing with. So let's go back to Alendra's character sheet. We need to add a 0 to the Lawless box. And then choose 2 skills from Fishing, Haggle, Hunting, Riding, and Survival, and add +5 to the bonus box of each and shade their experience stars. As always, I'm going to roll for these. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to roll a d6 and re-roll a 6. We got a 2, so Haggle. We're going to give her +5 in Haggle. And +5 to fishing. And lastly, we need to set up the calendar, and we get to put a cross through the first Friday of the year. At the bottom of the sheet is a section titled Rations, right here. Each of the 30 pips represent a day of meals to be eaten by the adventurer. Your adventure begins with 15 rations, and you can go ahead and shade 15 pips on the track. The calendar has a place to write the current year and the name of your adventure. When you begin the World Builder game with a newly created adventure, the year is 1072. The adventure's name is Alendra. Now we are finally ready to begin the game proper. In the next video, we're going to start adventuring. Alendra's going to go out into the wide world and see what kind of adventures she can encounter. Those 3 quests that we generated for her are not the only quests in the world. They are just the quests that she starts out knowing about. They might not even be the quests that she begins with. She might learn about other quests, perhaps, and decide to go with those instead. For now, thank you so much for joining me. If you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and leave them down below. And when you're ready to continue the journey, you know where to find me. See you at the quiet table.